Go.
Why don't you move your chair a little bit over so that I can look this way instead of that? So instead of looking this way.
There you go.
That's good.
Hi, Pop.
Hi,
Good to see
son.
you.
How are you?
I'm great.
I know you're great.
So I thought it'd be neat to interview you. You're how old? 87 now?
Oh, please don't remind me. Yes, I'm 87.
So you're born in 1927.
That's correct.
Wow. Back in the dinosaur age.
Not quite.
Right. So, yeah, I thought it'd be neat to ask you about some of the things from your childhood, Pop.
Absolutely, son. I'd love to talk to you about it.
You really are a novelty, you know? And I'm sure you have some great memories and like to share your stories. So, what are some of your early memories, Dad? Like, what are some of your earliest memories that you can remember from being young?
Oh, gosh. Playing in front of my house when I lived in Arthur Avenue in the Bronx.
In the Bronx.
And just getting along nicely with the kids in the neighborhood. And when we moved to another place in the Bronx later on from Arthur Avenue, we moved to 199th Street. And we had some very nice neighbors, and I got along great. We played stickball.
Right, I remember this. And then curveball, wasn't it?
Yeah, we also played curveball.
Curveball, right. You bounce it off the curb and then run. Yeah.
And we played all kinds of games, and I enjoyed it very much.
So that was what age? How old, roughly?
I moved to 199th Street, I guess, when I was around 9 or 10 years old.
Mm-hmm.
And I lived there until I went to the Army.
Wow. So do you remember anything like grade school or
Oh, yes, I
before
do.
that?
I loved being in grade school. I did very nicely. I got wonderful grades. And
So what kind of things did you guys study in elementary school? Because obviously the school has changed.
well, you know, it's a very
Right.
interesting thing. One of the thoughts that occurred to me recently
Mm-hmm.
is the fact that the educational environment has changed.
Oh, of course, right.
And I came up with that when I was talking to some of my students and telling them things that are not in their books, but I remember learning when I was a kid.
Right.
Little tricks, neat little tricks like how to square a number that ends in a 5.
Right.
You don't get that in books anymore.
No.
You got that.
No.
And talking about things that they used to give in school when I was a kid, I still remember with great delight that once a week, all of us would sit in the auditorium and listen to classical music.
Mm-hmm. I remember, yeah. You told me.
And we were taught to memorize melodies.
Mm-hmm.
This is the symphony that Schubert wrote and never finished.
Mm-hmm.
And those little words that they would give us to help us
Right.
remember.
Mnemonic devices.
Mnemonic devices, that's a good word. Mnemonic, what does it mean?
Right. Mnemonic.
Okay. Anyway, I still love that. And every week we would have an hour in the auditorium
Mm-hmm.
and we'd learn to how to appreciate beautiful classical music.
Yeah.
No more.
But that was in grade school now.
That was in junior high school.
Junior high, okay.
And that was nice. I went to junior high school and it saved me a year. As a result of that, I was able to graduate at the age of 16.
Wow.
Well, high school.
Right. It's very early.
And I went to college and would have graduated.
Let's stick to the your childhood.
Oh, the childhood.
Right. Yeah. And then we'll get along with the other subjects and later in life. But
Whatever
I thought it'd
you
be
say.
nice to get down some of your earliest memories. So yeah. And anything else? Any other recollections or any particular events that happened?
Oh, recollections. I remember we used to live just down the block from the Lowe's Paradise. And we used to love the Lowe's Paradise because every hour on the hour, not only would the bell ring, you know,
Right.
but they had a knight on a dragon, not on a dragon, on a horse, with his lance pointing to a dragon. And I remember every hour we'd look up and there's the knight plunging his lance toward the dragon.
That's kind of neat.
And it was great. The Lowe's Paradise was a marvelous place.
Mm-hmm.
And some wonderful people appeared there. I still remember the time Mario Lanza appeared there.
So that's a venue.
It's a venue.
Oh, okay.
And there were some very nice restaurants and very nice movie theaters that we went to. It was a nice part of the Bronx.
And so did you see Chaplin? Was Chaplin playing at that time? Or what did you see at that time?
Well,
Marx Brothers?
The Marx Brothers, yes.
Marx Brothers,
It was
yeah.
past the Chaplin time.
Right. That's right, because it went over to the talkies at the end of the 20s, about the
The
time you were
talkies
born.
began in 1927,
With you.
with the jazz singer. Well, that's right, the same year.
Right.
But Al Jolson, a nice Jewish boy,
Uh-huh.
made the first talkie in 1927. And even now, I am amazed when I see, it pleases me, it gives me great
Mhm.
delight to watch some of the movies that were made in the early 1930s.
Mm-hmm.
And they were great movies.
Right.
And I'd say to myself, my God, this is only 4 years after the first talkie was made.
Right, yeah. It is
How-
amazing how they adapted.
How quickly they adapted.
Right.
And they did a wonderful thing to watch people like Wallace Beery and so on.
Oh,
You never heard of Wallace Beery? He's one of the old timers.
okay.
But I still remember them with great delight.
But of course, the king of the silent film is obviously
Okay.
Charlie.
Charlie Chaplin.
There you go.
He's a great man.
Yeah. Let's come back to your childhood because, so Dad, if you were born in 27, you grew up during the Great Depression.
That's right.
Right. So what do you remember about the Great Depression and the hardships or the things you had to do?
I was fortunate that my father was very well adapted for that environment because he was a sheet metal worker and he would easily get jobs all the time.
Interesting. Through the Great Depression.
Through the Great Depression, my
Wow.
father was always employed. He was a very skilled man, he used to have his own neon sign shop.
Oh, I didn't know that. Huh?
Yeah, before I was born, he had a neon sign shop.
Yeah.
But then in the Great Depression, he lost it.
Mm-hmm.
But then he continued working as a sheet metal worker in shipyards and places like that, and
Wow.
was always employed.
That's unbelievable because what was the unemployment? Right. Unemployment was what?
Oh, it was very
50% or something. Almost like 1 in 2 people didn't have a job, right?
Could very well be.
Something like that.
I'm very bad at numbers.
Yeah, I'm sure. Right. That's interesting. I didn't know that. So he was always employed. It must run in the family.
That's right.
Right.
I've never been unemployed.
There you go.
And as a matter of fact, I'm just about, I believe, to get another nice employment situation.
Excellent. Okay, we'll talk about that later. Okay, so the Great Depression didn't really affect your family so much, but what about your friends' families or extended family? Did you?
I can't think of anyone really living in poverty.
Wow.
The entire family was able to make a good living, all of them.
No.
I don't remember anybody suffering.
But I'm sure you saw the lines of the soup kitchen.
Oh, we
and all
saw that,
Okay,
yes,
yeah,
of course.
yeah, okay. Very interesting.
It was a rough time for the country as a whole,
Right.
but my family did very nicely
Excellent.
because we had the skills
Mm-hmm.
and the determination.
Excellent, Pop. And what do you remember about your mom? Some recollections about your mom.
I still remember her with great warmth. She was a wonderful, caring person. Would go out of her way to do anything that was necessary for my benefit.
I do remember the birthday party. She went around the neighborhood, knocked on all the doors, and got all your friends to come to the party, right?
That's right, she
And
did that.
you didn't know, and then you showed up and they were all there.
And they were all there.
Yeah,
She was a wonderful
that's
person.
very cool.
So that's pretty much what my childhood was. It was a great source of pleasure to me. I enjoyed it very much.
Yeah.
And I learned an awful lot when I was a kid.
Right, and you liked the way the school challenged you at that time.
Yeah.
Whereas today, they don't really teach the individual to think. You just process the information.
Yeah, and you use formulas. Now, you know,
Right. You're not supposed to think.
I give my kids a problem. The first thing they do is they grab their calculator.
Right.
And I tell them I don't want to develop these muscles. I want to develop these muscles.
Right. Yeah, I agree. Right. But come back to your mom, and there has to be some other memories. I remember something about a salmon.
Salmon. She used to make salmon a lot.
Yeah.
An awful lot.
Right. And I'm trying to think, what else? There has to be some other memories of your mom.
Potato latkes.
Oh, there you go.
You know, latkes are
Whatever that is.
the Jewish word for pancakes.
Oh, I didn't
Well,
know.
not pancakes, just little.
It's a potato pancake.
Potato
Yeah, because it's a
pancake.
batter. You pour it in
Yeah.
the pan like a, there you go.
Well, it wasn't, you know, as flat as a pancake.
Sure, but it's the same concept.
Yeah.
You make the batter, you pour it in, makes a cake.
And she would make delicious potato latkes, and she's a marvelous cook.
Really? Excellent.
And above all, she was a very caring individual.
And that's what's important.
And I still remember when I lived in the Bronx, the entire family, my brothers, my two brothers and my sister, were crammed into a 5-room apartment, but all of the rooms were occupied. One room was occupied by my brother Harry and me in one bed,
Wow.
my brother Irving and my father in the other bed.
Wow.
So all the males were in one room.
Right, right, right.
And then the two females,
Right.
my mother and my sister, were in the other room. And unlike other married households where the husband and wife slept together,
Right.
my father didn't sleep with my mother.
Right.
The men slept in one room, the women slept in the other room. And in the third bedroom, there were 3 bedrooms, was Mr. Posnick.
I'm sorry?
Mr. Posnick, Harold Posnick, a very nice Russian immigrant who taught me to play the violin and taught me how to play chess.
Chess, yeah, that's right.
He's a wonderful man.
Yeah.
And he lived in his bedroom on one end of the apartment, and my family, my brothers, my father, and my mother and sister lived at the other end. And we'd have a nice living room. I remember we spent a lot of time in the living room.
Right.
And the kitchen, 5 rooms.
Just enough room.
enough
Just
room,
barely
yeah.
enough room. Yeah. Excellent. And what do you remember about your pop? Pop?
I remember my pop used to be a very hard worker. He and I, frankly, were not as close as my mother and I.
Right. Now, was that because he was so busy? He worked a lot of hours?
Because he was so busy, and also because of his temperament. He did not have the warm, loving, caring feelings that my mother conveyed all the time. But he was a good man, but just not as warm as my mother.
Right.
She was loved by everyone.
So there more or less the roles were more defined back then. The man had the responsibility.
He lived that kind of role,
and-
that's right.
And he did it.
Yeah,
He did it.
but he did what he needed to do and brought in the money.
Right. Well, that's the proof of the pudding. If he made it through the Great Depression, and
That's
kept it-
right.
That's unbelievable. Yeah.
So that's pretty much what happened. And we enjoyed living in the Bronx. My sister went to the same high school as, what's the name of that famous actor? I can't remember his name. I'm blocking on it. It was very famous. Joe's Garfinkel. John Garfinkel.
And what was he in? It's got to be before my time, because
John Garfield was his name.
Garfield. Okay.
John Garfield was the name of the actor, but
Okay.
when he went to college, to high school with my sister, his name was Jules Garfinkel. Okay? Another of the many Jewish
Right.
inhabitants of New York who made it to Hollywood.
Had to change their name.
Yeah.
Right.
But anyway, she went to school with John Garfield. I went to school of all
Neil
things
Simon.
with Neil Simon.
There you go.
He and I were in the same graduating class at
Right.
George Lytton.
Unbeknownst.
Unbeknownst,
Till
I
recently,
had no
right?
idea. That's right.
Right.
He was not a class star.
Mm-hmm.
To be honest with you, if you think of my bragging, I was.
Right.
I mean, I won the French medal when I graduated,
Mm-hmm.
and I won other awards when I graduated. And I just wish that I had known Neil Simon, because I would have loved in the 50s when he made it with Sid Caesar.
Right.
I
But
wish-
you were in school with him before. That had to have been the 40s, then early 40s.
I was in school and would have graduated at the age of 20
Okay.
in 1947,
Right.
except that they drafted me into the Army.
Mm-hmm.
And I went to the Army very unhappily. I didn't want to go.
You wanted to finish school.
I wanted to finish school.
Yeah.
But it turns out that being in the Army
Right.
did wonders for me.
Mhm.
It's one of the best things that ever happened to me.
Yeah.
I became
Well-
a sergeant within a relatively short period of time,
Mm-hmm.
and I still served a little over a year, causing me to miss a year of college. But I was able to get out in time to make the spring semester,
Excellent.
and I only lost a year. And I graduated at the age of 21 instead of at the age of 20, with over a year of Army experience.
Right, right.
And it was wonderful.
So you're way ahead of the game, obviously.
Way ahead of the game.
Well, we're all just very fortunate, Pop, that you went in after the war.
After the
So-
war, I went into, thanks to the GI Bill of Rights,
Mm-hmm.
I was able to go to Columbia University. It didn't cost me a penny.
That's excellent.
Not only didn't it cost me a penny, I got something like, I think, $15 a month, just, you know,
Per living expenses.
living expenses.
Excellent, Pop.
And,
I didn't know that.
And my entire graduate education at Columbia University was free, thanks to the
Excellent.
GI Bill of Rights.
Yeah.
And did I ever tell you who the president of Columbia University was?
Oh, gosh.
When I went there?
No.
Dwight D. Eisenhower.
Unbelievable.
Isn't that something?
Wow.
Before he became president,
Right.
he was president of Columbia University, and that was when I went there.
Unbelievable.
So, you know, I've rubbed shoulders,
Right.
not quite, but been close
Right.
to a lot of very wonderful people like Dwight D. Eisenhower.
Mm-hmm. Excellent, Pop. Anything else on your Pop? Any specific occasions or incidents or memories?
With my father?
I mean, anything that stands out in your memory?
No, all I remember is we used to go to the beach very often.
Mm-hmm. Coney Island also, right?
Well, Coney Island when we lived in Brooklyn.
Right.
And we did live in Brooklyn until I was 3 years old.
Oh, okay.
Then at the age of 3, I moved to the Bronx and took my family with me.
Right. Right. So, but you probably don't remember the Brooklyn so much. I mean,
No, I don't remember
3,
Brooklyn so
yeah.
much. But, come to think of it, our relatives, aunts and uncles, remained in Brooklyn,
mm-hmm.
even though we moved to the Bronx.
Right.
And we spent a lot of time traveling back to Brooklyn
Right.
to visit them.
Mm-hmm.
So I did spend a lot of time at Coney Island and other places in Brooklyn visiting my family.
Right.
And it was wonderful. I had a wonderful family of very caring human beings.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, let's talk about your siblings.
Okay, I have 3 siblings. The oldest one, of course, and they're all quite a bit older than me.
Right.
The
Wait,
oldest is-
you are the baby of the...
I was the baby.
Uh-huh.
The oldest one, who was, believe it or not, 13 years older than me,
Uh-huh.
was my brother Harry.
Harry, right.
A wonderful man. But he unfortunately died early at the age of 68 of a heart condition.
Right. Smoke.
But he was a wonderful, caring person, and he was a printer. He worked for a print shop,
Mm-hmm.
Neo-Gravure Company or something like that, doing
Okay.
printing. And he loved the babes. He loved to get around.
I was...
Yeah.
He was a ladies' man, huh?
His ladies' man, he went in the Army, and while he was in the Army, on one of his furloughs, he came east and married his wife, a wonderful woman by the name of Pat.
Pat, yeah, right.
Pat, she was marvelous.
Mm-hmm.
Her name was Natalie, but everyone called her Pat. And I still remember their wedding, believe it or not, in 1943.
Hmm.
And that was my brother Harry. He was a sergeant.
Mm-hmm.
My brother Irving was around a year and change, maybe 15 months younger than him.
Mm-hmm.
Harry, I remember, was born in April and Irving in July,
Wow.
but 1 year apart,
Right.
plus those 3 months.
Right, a year and a couple months, right?
A year and a couple of months. And Irving was 12 years older than I.
Mm-hmm.
And Sylvia was 2 years behind Irving, so she was 10 years older than I.
Oh, wow, so you really were the baby.
And then there was a 10-year
Your gap, yeah.
until me.
Wow.
You know, when my father forgot to be careful and
Right.
my mother became pregnant.
Okay, family show, thanks so much. Okay. Right. Hmm.
But it was nice. I had 3 older siblings, and they were all sufficiently older than me
Right.
that they were able to be mentors to me.
Mm-hmm.
And they were. I learned an awful lot from them.
That's excellent, Pop. So not a lot of sibling rivalry, or
No, I got along
Big
very
group.
well with them.
did you ever have a period in time where you were in a tiff with your siblings?
No, we didn't fight.
That's excellent, Pop.
We got along beautifully. And it was really a wonderful childhood. I remember with a great deal of fondness and dear memories.
Mm-hmm.
learning the violin.
Mm-hmm.
He taught me free.
But I thought I remember you saying you didn't like the violin so much.
Oh no, I liked the violin. I just didn't play it very well. I was very bad.
Oh, okay.
I was a very poor
Okay.
violinist.
Well, you were a beginner.
I was a beginner. Also, my fingers are short, and you need longer fingers.
Right. Me too. That's why I play the drums.
But I did learn music thanks to him, and I learned to appreciate music thanks to him.
And the music appreciation in school.
And the music appreciation, that's right.
Mm-hmm.
So that was pretty much what my boyhood was.
Mm-hmm. So, okay, so you talked about Harry and then...
Irving.
What a little more in detail.
Irving, like Harry went in the army during the war, but never... oh, yes, as a matter of fact, he did go overseas. He went over to Hawaii.
Uh-huh.
And he spent a fair amount of time in Hawaii, but then they brought him back to the States and gave him a new assignment, and he rose nicely. He became a staff sergeant or something like that.
Mm-hmm.
But, and this was during the war, which is when he married Pat.
Mm-hmm.
And I remember the two of them living together at the base where he was stationed, somewhere in North Carolina.
Okay.
So except for the time that he spent in Pearl Harbor, after, I'm sorry, in
No.
Hawaii, after Pearl Harbor.
Oh, was that okay? After
He went there after Pearl Harbor.
Well, yeah, because obviously we're in the war, so
That's right.
Right. Okay.
But they did reassign him back in the States
Mm-hmm.
and gave him training in the States, and he was assigned for the rest of the war in the States. He never went overseas. And the
Right.
same thing with Irving.
Right. Back to Continental.
Irving, who was a certified public accountant,
Mm-hmm.
had a talent that they found useful in the Army,
Mm-hmm.
and he became a warrant officer.
So what was the talent? Crunching numbers or something?
Crunching numbers,
Yeah.
yes.
Yeah.
He was a CPA,
Huh.
what I call a satisfied public accountant.
That's right. That's spelling, right?
But let's see, Irving was 12 years older than me, so he was born in 1915,
Uh-huh.
which means that when World War II came in 41,
Right.
he was 26,
Mm-hmm.
but already college educated.
Right.
So they did draft him, as I was drafted,
Right.
but they made him a warrant officer. And he too got married during the war to a very wonderful woman by the name of Gladys. And
I didn't know that. So both your brothers got married during the war.
During the war.
During the war.
and spent the entire war in the States.
Uh-huh.
And then when I got drafted after the war,
Right.
I spent my time in the States also.
I didn't know I'm from such a family with military history.
We do have a good military history, but nothing
Interesting.
overseas,
Right.
except for Harry's stay in Hawaii.
Right. Technically overseas, but still.
Well, at that time Hawaii.
Actually, Hawaii wasn't a state
Was
yet.
not yet a state.
That's right. That's right.
That's right.
That's right. Interesting. Timing was very, very tight. Uh-huh. So at the time of Pearl Harbor, Hawaii wasn't even a state at that point.
No,
'cause
it
it
was
was
not a state.
1949, was it?
I don't remember. I was a baby at the time.
Yeah. That's very interesting. And let's talk about Sylvia a little bit.
Then
She was
Sylvia
very
is
interesting.
also very interesting
Right.
because Sylvia, in 1942, when I was 15 and she was 25,
Mhm.
she met this wonderful black man,
Mhm.
Johnny Richardson,
There you go.
musician, songwriter, entertainer,
Mhm.
and the two of them got married.
Unbelievable.
And that was a big blow to the family because back in those days,
Right.
interracial marriages were unheard of.
Mhm. Absolutely.
And for many years after they got married, the only members of the family who had anything to do with her were my mother and me.
Right.
I would go down to visit her where she was living in the Lower East Side in Manhattan
Mhm.
and visit her all the time. And my mother didn't visit her but was friendly with her and would see her from time to time. They go
Mhm.
shopping together, things like that.
Right.
But nobody else in the family had anything to do with her.
Unbelievable. And
Until-
even your brothers.
Not even my brothers. Until my mother died in 1967, and my brother Irving was able to get Sylvia's phone number and call her. I was invited, not invited, I was told that my mother died, because at that time I was living in Philadelphia, or outside of Philadelphia.
Mm-hmm.
So I had to drive here to the funeral, and matter of fact, to see her before she died. And who was there? My sister. My brothers did get over the separation between them and her.
Right, but just for that occasion, and then after that...
Because of that occasion, they got together, yes. And after that, they never...
Went back to the way it was.
No, it went back to the way it was now.
It's tough.
But Sylvia and I have been friends ever since, and until she died a couple of years ago, we still corresponded and saw each other. Matter of fact, I think I have a picture of her at Adrian's, not here.
I saw the picture you had
You saw the
with,
picture.
with her, and then Johnny,
And Johnny.
and Nina, was it?
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
At any rate, they had the one daughter, Nina,
Mm-hmm.
who was also a very nice woman, who turned to the Baha'i faith and made a living teaching
Mm-hmm.
Baha'i culture
Right.
to people. And a very nice young woman she was. Of course, she's no longer young.
Mm-hmm.
But she
Young
had-
at heart.
She had 2 children.
Mhm.
I don't remember their names exactly.
Yeah, one of them was Benny, wasn't it?
Benny is one, that's
yeah,
right.
Yeah, because we saw Benny, must have been 10 years ago, but I remember
remember
we saw,
that?
yeah, in Maryland.
Yeah, we saw Benny.
Yeah, so Sylvia, Johnny, and Benny. I don't think Nina was there, but
Yeah.
I remember that.
But it was very nice. And of course, Sylvia is one of the few people who got married to somebody of the other race back in the 40s.
Right.
And the price that she paid in the States,
Mm-hmm.
I remember because she would tell me this,
Right.
is they love to travel. They just love to drive all over the country.
Mm-hmm.
But anytime they went to a motel for the
Right.
purpose of checking in,
Uh-huh.
Johnny would have to sit in the back seat,
Right.
invisible to the manager.
Right. Absolutely. Yeah. High.
Because if
out
the
of
manager
sight.
saw a black man in a car with a white woman,
Right.
sorry, no rooms.
Right.
But she would manage to get a room, and the 2 of them
And then just sneak him in the back door. And
sneak
go
him in the
in.
back door, yeah. But on the other hand, outside of the United States, and that's very interesting,
Uh-huh.
the great United States,
Right. The land of equality,
Yeah.
freedom, equal rights.
the trouble that they had
Right.
as an
In the
interracial
States.
couple.
Right. And then
That's
you
right.
go overseas.
He would go on steamships, on cruises,
Mm-hmm.
as an invited guest, and would be paid and honored
Oh, as an entertainer? Or?
as an entertainer.
Oh, okay. Okay.
Because he was an entertainer, he was able to get nice assignments on
Mhm.
ships where he would perform. And I don't know whether he would get paid as well as the free passage.
Right.
I don't remember that.
Right. Maybe just a free ride and
Just
food.
a free ride, yeah, and free food.
Yeah.
And he would sit at the table with the captain of the ship.
How about that?
He was treated like royalty when he was outside of the United States. But inside the United
Beautiful.
States, he was treated the way all other blacks were. And yet they managed to make it all the way through. And as far as I know, John is still living.
Still alive. 104.
He must be around 105 at least.
Wow.
And I was just mentioning this to Adrian the other day, that I think it's about time I gave a call to find out how he is.
Absolutely.
I'm sure that if anything bad happened to him,
Right.
Nita would have gotten in touch with me.
Right.
But you never know.
Well, you and Nina are in correspondence. You guys are pretty
We
tight.
are in correspondence,
So,
that's right.
yeah, I would think
But I'm
so.
sure I would have heard if anything happened. But he's got to be at least 105 now.
Yeah. Let's make the call first. We gotta get in touch with him.
Let's do that, okay? I'll make a point of that. Thanks for reminding me.
There you go. That's what sons are for. Right. So, any other stories about Johnny and Sylvia, or ways that she had to hide the marriage, or?
Well, they didn't have to hide the marriage. First of all, they were dealing with a circle of friends who accepted interracial marriage.
Mhm.
And I don't know whether you knew this or not, and she was a member of the Communist Party
Oh.
back
I know that.
back in those days, because back in those days, a lot of people were attracted to the Communist Party because they were suffering from racial prejudice.
Right.
And believe it or not, the communists did not employ racial prejudice.
Right.
And so they attracted a lot of people like Sylvia and Johnny,
Isn't that interesting?
who did not particularly acquaint themselves with the economic aspects of
Right,
communism,
right,
but rather with the fact that they were accepted.
right. Everyone's on a level
Everyone's
playing
all on an
field.
equal level, that's
Right,
right. That's
right.
what communism is all about, everyone's equal.
That's interesting. But when you say communism, it makes everyone think of oppression, whereas actually they had equal rights, and it was actually more fair and balanced.
There was a lot of good that came out of being a communist back in those days.
Right,
Unfortunately, if you talk to Senator McCarthy,
right,
he doesn't agree.
right,
If you're a communist, you're a terrible person.
right.
And a lot of people, many of them Jewish,
Mm-hmm.
who were attracted to communism because of its acceptance of people of other faiths.
Right, right.
But as you know, a lot of Jewish screenwriters
Mm-hmm.
and others in Hollywood
You know,
were
blacklisted.
blacklisted
Yeah.
because they were communists.
Yeah. Or Jewish, or both.
Well, maybe that too.
Right.
But they had to get other people to write scripts for them
Mhm.
under the other person's name.
Right, a different name, right.
Yeah, a lot of blacklisted screenwriters made livings by getting ghostwriters to write for them.
Right.
That's in this great country, and that's less than 100 years ago.
Oh, yeah. I mean, that was what, 40s?
40s
70
and
years
50s,
ago?
yeah.
Yeah, 60
McCarthy
years
was
ago.
in the 50s.
Yeah, 60 years ago.
Yeah.
A little more than half a century. Yeah. Okay. Good stuff, Papa. Let's get back to you. What about your friends? Do you remember any? I mean, you talked about the things you did with your friends, and you remember them with fond memories, but do you remember any particular friends? Any of their names or what they look like? Or
Well, back in my early days,
yeah, yeah.
because I do remember friends, and some of them are still my friends,
Mm-hmm.
that I've met after I started working.
No. I'm talking about your early. I'd like to try to go to as far back as you can remember, Pop, and then
There are no old friends that I have, but I do remember
Not that you have, but that you remember.
that I remember.
Any?
There was a wonderful Italian kid by the name of Petrosini. I don't remember his first name.
Petrosini.
Yeah, Petrosini. And we used to play stickball and curveball all the
Right.
time. And he was a very good athlete.
Uh-huh.
And I remember Petrosini. And I'll be very honest with you, I don't remember anyone else's name
No.
back in those days.
Mm-hmm.
And really, I was not that close with them as friends, except for this nice kid, Petrosini.
Interesting. But do you remember having a lot of friends, a couple friends?
A couple of friends,
Yeah.
yeah.
A couple of good
And
friends.
primarily, all we did was we played ball together.
Mm-hmm. Oh, you had to use your imagination. I mean, you didn't have the
Yeah.
electronic devices. And,
I don't
You know.
remember going to parties or anything like that.
right. You didn't have television, but did you listen to radio as a
Oh, I listened to radio, sure.
with friends and family? and-
Sure.
Yeah.
We got radio all the time. At any time, FDR, Franklin Roosevelt would make a
Mhm.
speech.
Oh, that's a big deal.
The entire
Everyone's
family would
right.
look glued to the. And I remember many of his talks we would listen to.
interesting. And were there certain programs you like to listen to? I mean, I think they had a lot of comedy back then, wasn't it? There were certain radio shows.
It's gone back so far, son, I can't remember.
That's all right.
I would listen
Whatever you
to
can.
shows,
Mm-hmm.
but I can't remember what they were. I can't.
Yeah. Comedy, just general
Comedy,
news,
yeah.
talk shows, yeah.
Not talk shows, comedy.
Comedy, yeah,
I love comedy.
yeah. Kind of like Three Stooges.
Yeah, the Three
Kind of,
Stooges.
yeah.
Larry, Curly, and Moe, that I remember.
Mm-hmm. Good, Pop.
Good, son. I'm glad you're revitalizing these memories on my part.
You're really bringing them up, Pop.
Well, you're helping me bring them up.
There you go.
And it was a good childhood that I had.
Excellent, Pop. Sounds like a wonderful childhood.
It was, in many ways.
Siblings, friends, okay. And then what about friends later on? You had a guy you used to hang out with when you had a furlough, when you're,
Oh,
Right.
yeah, that's a very interesting thing. Bert Pugash.
that's the guy, that's right, that's the guy who looked like you,
Guy
wasn't
who
it?
looked like me when we were in the Army,
Right,
and we were traveling on a train
uh-huh.
from Fort Dix, which is where we were sent.
Mhm.
From Fort Dix, we were sent down to San Antonio
Mhm.
to an Army Air Corps base.
Ah, I remember that.
This is
Okay,
before
Texas,
the
right?
That's right.
Before the Air Force.
Before the Air Force,
Right.
it was Army Air Corps,
Uh-huh.
and of course they had Navy Air Corps, and I was in the Army Air Corps,
Mhm.
and I went down there, and it was San Antonio, and I enjoyed San Antonio very much. Although I must admit, there were so many things that I could have done down there that I didn't do because
Mhm.
I was not interested in certain aspects of culture then that I am now.
Why do you think that is, Dad?
I don't know.
You're not sure.
For example, I was down at San Antonio. You'd think that I would have gone to visit the Alamo. And instead of going to
Yeah.
visit the Alamo, which I didn't do,
Mhm.
I visited the Alamo a number of years later when I went on a business trip as a consultant.
Mhm.
And I was on a business trip involving visiting somebody in San Antonio, and I went to the Alamo for the first time, and boy, that really stirred me.
Mhm.
And I said to myself, what a jerk I am. When I was in the service, I never went to the Alamo.
Well, as long as you remember the Alamo, you're good.
But I did go to Mexico. Why?
Right,
Because I wanted to
because-
meet the girls.
Right. Okay. Family show. Thanks so much. Okay.
And it was a wonderful experience that I had down in Mexico.
What happens in Mexico stays in Mexico.
But the Alamo, not until later on in my life.
Mm-hmm.
And that was a big thrill when I did go.
Yeah. Well, you were probably just enjoying your freedom and getting down there and
That's
being
right.
young and yeah.
And it was nice. I had a couple of stripes, you know, and I was able to go pretty much anywhere I wanted. And where I wanted to go then was to be with the girls down in Mexico.
Right. Well,
And enough of
That
that.
was it?
I'm not going to say anymore.
all right. I think we made the point. But then Burt Pugash ended up making that strange.
Bert
Strange Love
Pugash
movie?
was the guy that I met on the train.
Right. Was not a nice man.
Matter of fact, I didn't even meet him on the train, but it turned out because he looked like me and because he was a real pain in the neck
Right.
to everyone else,
Right.
when I got down to San Antonio, people would act very poorly toward me.
Cold
very
shoulder.
Cold
yeah,
shoulder.
yeah.
And I later found out that somebody said, you know, you have been confused with this other guy, the guy that made a pest of himself
Right.
on the train,
On
because
the
that's
train.
what he did.
Uh-huh.
He was a real pest of an individual, bothering people.
Mm-hmm.
And he did not make friends.
Right.
He made enemies.
Right.
And because I looked like him, people confused me with him. And until the thing finally got straightened out, I suffered
Socially.
socially.
Yeah.
But somebody caught the fact that I was not the same as he
Right.
was,
Right.
and that I was being confused with him.
Right.
But then eventually he and I became friends.
It's so interesting.
And I still remember waiting to be assigned down in San Antonio.
Mm-hmm.
He was one of the people waiting to be assigned.
Mm-hmm.
They didn't like him down there.
Mm-hmm.
He was not a likable person.
That's why he got all the furloughs, right? Was that?
And they said to him, Pugash,
Right.
you've been assigned, you're going to Manhattan.
Right.
And he said, my God, I'm going to Manhattan. A New York boy, right?
Right.
To be assigned to Manhattan?
Mm-hmm.
Well, he was assigned to Manhattan, all right. It was Manhattan, Kansas.
Right.
And instead of telling
Right.
him, they wanted to hurt his feelings by initially
That's
telling
funny.
him he's
Right.
going to Manhattan, and then he found out he's not going to Manhattan.
Yeah.
He's
Where's
going to
Greenwich Village? Come on.
Manhattan,
Where's,
Kansas.
where's Soho?
But he and I remained in touch, and he wrote to me and said, on one occasion, that he's getting a furlough, which will take him to New York. Can I arrange to get a furlough too?
Mm-hmm.
Now, I'm not proud of this,
Right.
but the fact of the matter is, what I did was arrange to get a furlough
Mm-hmm.
by getting a letter from my mother. This is an act of contrition on my part. I'm admitting
Right.
that I did something bad.
Right.
I was able to get a letter from my mother saying that she is that she was sick, and I was able to get a furlough because of that.
Right.
They gave me a furlough that took me back to New York
Right.
for a period of roughly a week.
Right. Well, that guy was obviously a bad influence. I mean, you wouldn't have done that on your own accord.
And I still remember I didn't have to pay anything to go to New York. Why? Because as a GI, I was able to fly on an Army plane. So I was able to get free transportation back to New York,
How about that?
and Bert Pugash and his girlfriend introduced me to one of her friends, his girlfriend's friend,
No.
and we would double date.
Oh, now wait a minute. Was this the one where the girls were not that good looking and you guys left them in the theater?
No.
That was a different.
That was a different
okay,
story.
that was a different one.
Oh no! As a matter of fact, Bert Pugash had a good-looking girl.
Yeah. Oh, okay.
He, despite the fact that he was not a very likable guy, he was able
Right.
to become a lawyer, and then of course he got in trouble. You know the story.
Right. Through lie in his ex-wife's face.
He had somebody throw lye in his wife's face.
His current wife's face at
His
that
current
time.
wife's face.
Unbelievable.
And the other guys, of course, got sentenced, and he got sentenced too.
Right.
He spent a lot of time in jail.
Yeah, but then when
And
he
his
got
lawyer
out.
he was an attorney by then,
Right.
and we had nothing to do after that. He and I.
Well, attorneys know how to lie. Thanks so much.
Yeah, attorneys know how to lie. Is
Right.
right. That's what I call them, lawyers. Lawyers.
Right.
But he has been written up many times in the press,
Mm-hmm.
not glowingly, not favorably.
No, not at all.
And he's still around, as a matter of fact. I know he's around.
Oh,
because-
jeez.
well, I still get emails, not from him,
Right.
but from LinkedIn or something like that, saying, Bert Pugash is looking for you.
No, don't answer.
And of course, I don't answer it, no.
Oh, jeez.
Yeah.
Okay. Enough of that strange love. What about Hebrew school? You went to Hebrew school, right?
I went to Hebrew school, and I did very nicely there.
Mm-hmm. And you liked it?
I loved it.
And you got along with your classmates?
I got along with my classmates and was very highly regarded
Mm-hmm.
by my instructor.
Mm-hmm.
I knew Hebrew well enough then that I was able to lead sermons and things that,
Oh, lead prayers.
Yeah, read the prayers, right.
Lead prayers, right.
Lead prayers, not the
Right.
sermons, yeah.
Right.
And it was nice. I enjoyed being there. But of course, once I got my confirmation, I really, in effect, abandoned Hebrew school. I had nothing to do anymore.
Right. Yeah, because it does seem that after you get your confirmation, that that's pretty much it. It doesn't
Yeah.
go on after that, unless you want to be a rabbi or go into further rabbinical studies.
No, but I did tell girls that I was a confirmed bachelor,
Right.
and they would say, "Get out of here."
Right. And do you remember your bar mitzvah?
I do indeed.
Mm-hmm.
It was a wonderful occasion.
And you learned your whole Haftorah and
Yeah.
recited that. And then did you have to lead the whole service? It was a Saturday service usually.
I led a good portion of the service, yes.
Mhm.
I was a well-regarded member of the Hebrew school there.
Right.
I remember that. And I enjoyed it very much.
Excellent, Pop.
I'm telling you, there's an awful lot about my childhood that I feel very proud of.
Yeah, and you remember with fondness.
Yes.
That's great.
Not
Pop.
some of the other things that I mentioned to you, like, a little story I just told you about how I was able to get a furlough to go to New York, by...
Well, it was a good time, but it's just you're conscious. There's something in you because you're a very honest man, Pop, and I appreciate
Yeah.
that. So yeah, I can understand that.
And they didn't mind. The people that I worked for loved me. They
Right.
really did. I got promoted very nicely. As soon as I was eligible to become a private first class, I got my first stripe.
Mm-hmm.
As soon as I was eligible to become a corporal, I got my second stripe.
Mm-hmm.
And as soon as I was eligible to become a sergeant, I got my third stripe.
Okay.
And although I was in the Army for just a shade over a year,
Right.
I spent a good couple of months, my final months, my last 3 or 4 months, as a sergeant.
Mm-hmm. 3 stripes and you're out, right?
3 stripes.
Ah!
Very good.
Be here all
Hey, I'm a comedian.
Uh-oh. What else? You talked about your regular school, not Hebrew school, but your junior high, high school. Any other memories from that? Junior high, high school. Did you guys have a prom?
If we did, I don't remember it. I
No?
certainly didn't go to it. And I did not have any dates in high school. I was not
Interesting.
a dating guy during my high school.
Right.
But in my college years, I was.
Hmm.
I met, when I went to college, City College, a wonderful woman by the name of Florence Greenberger.
Interesting.
She's a little bit more of a Greenberg than I am. She's
Yeah,
a Greenberger.
right.
And we had a nice, not a social relationship. I never dated her, but we did coordinate very nicely in school and do things together in school.
But platonic.
It was platonic, yes.
Right.
For her, it was playing. For me, it was a time.
No gin.
But she was a year older than I. So just about everyone I met in college was a year or two
because
older than I. Yeah. So there was that gap, if you will, in age. But she was a very nice person. I still remember Flo Greenberg. And then, of course, after 2.5 years in college, they drafted me. That's one of the best things that ever happened to me.
Until I was born.
That's one of the best things that ever happened to me, too.
Right. Good. What else? Movies. We talked a little bit about movies.
About
Charlie, Marx Brothers. Well, what else was big when you were growing
back
up?
in those days,
what
it
did
was
you
Charlie
see?
Chaplin. Yes, I used to see a lot of Charlie Chaplin and the Three Stooges and the Marx Brothers.
Of course, the Marx Brothers.
That's right. All Jews.
Yeah.
Not Charlie Chaplin.
That was questionable.
That is
right?
questionable. Some people contend that he was Jewish.
Right.
There is a rabbi who said that he was in my Hebrew class back in Russia. Because Charlie Chaplin was born in Russia.
He was born in Russia.
That's right. But Charlie Chaplin denied that he's Jewish.
Well, that can mean any number of things.
Could be.
Right.
He could be just, I don't know, who knows.
I mean, he was up and coming in the teens and then the early 20s. I mean, that's the time where you hide.
When you hide, that's right.
That's exactly the time where you hide.
And his brother's name was Sidney, a nice Jewish name. Charlie, Sidney, Jewish names.
Right.
But who knows?
Right. But anyway, so Charlie, Marx Brothers, and Three Stooges were Jewish.
I think they were, but I'm not sure.
Really?
Well, the guy's name was Mo. Mo was a nice Jewish name.
Okay. I'm not sure if those were their real names.
Yeah, they may not be.
Right. But what else? What else would play in the theater?
I remember going to the Lowe's Paradise, which was on the same block where I lived for a good couple of years. And we would see wonderful shows there. Because in addition to the movies, they would always have an entertainer.
Oh.
And I can't remember anyone back in those early days. I do remember going there later when Mario Lanza was making it. Mario Lanza, the famous singer and actor. And I remember he was not yet known to the public at the time, but he made a presentation at the Lowe's Paradise, and I remember going there. And he made a couple of remarks where he was sort of implying that he was Jewish. I'm serious.
What did he say?
I don't remember what he said exactly. But he would make little comments in which he did not convey the fact that he was a solid Italian, a real paisan, and he more or less implied that there might be Jewish blood there too.
Oh.
And I guess one of the reasons for that is because the audience at the Lowe's Paradise was largely Jewish.
Right.
And he was playing to the audience.
Right, absolutely. Right.
But I remember seeing him on the stage, making a nice little presentation to the audience before his first movie came out. But before that, when I was a baby, a young kid, and living there, I would go to the movies and they would have nice little vaudeville presentations.
Well, okay, so singing, like juggling?
Yeah.
Magic act, comedy, that kind of
They
thing?
could have that, that's right.
Yeah, variety act, okay.
Yeah, it was nice. The Lowe's Paradise.
That is nice.
And it's still there, I understand.
Interesting.
Yeah.
Very cool.
I remember the Archeo Fordham and the Valentine Theater and other places like that. Part of my youth, I used to go to the movies very often. And it was just a very nice childhood.
So what other movies do you remember? What other genres? I mean, obviously comedy was very big at that time.
I'd have to
Anything
think
else?
about it, son. I can't, nothing pops in my head right now.
Okay. All right, Pop.
But I do remember seeing a lot of excellent movies in the late 30s, early 40s, and so on.
Excellent. Great. Movies. We talked a little bit about music. Well, we talked about radio. But what were some of the big stars when you were growing up?
Oh, Jack Benny.
Huh.
And you know what his birth name was? Benny Kubelski.
Kubelski.
Kubelski. A nice Jewish name.
Right.
So Jack Benny was one of them. Eddie
Interesting.
Cantor.
Uh-huh.
Eddie Cantor, you know what his birth name was?
Hmm.
Eddie Itzkovitz. The stars
Unbelievable.
back in those days were, not all of them, but
But,
the
By and
majority,
large.
the majority
yeah.
were Jewish.
Mm-hmm.
Jack Benny, the songwriters, my God,
Irving Berlin,
Irving Berlin, Gershwin,
right, Cole Porter.
Jerome Kern.
Yeah.
not Cole Porter.
That's right, he wasn't Jewish.
Cole
but-
Porter was not Jewish.
Right, but overall,
And
music.
Bogey Carmichael was another one who was not Jewish.
Right.
But my God, the rest of them.
Mm-hmm. Right. Well, I'm just trying to include all the music at that time, not just the Jewish.
Yeah, all the
but-
music.
Right.
And I used to love the music of those days.
Mm-hmm.
And I
you
just-
always like classical as well.
I love
opera.
classical music,
Right.
but I listen to the music they're playing now, and now everything is no lovely melodies anymore.
Not so much. It's rare.
It's rare that you get a lovely melody, a nice little theme or something like that.
Right.
And I still remember back in the 1970s when I was trying to peddle some of my songs,
Mm-hmm.
a publisher saying to me, you know, you write a nice Gershwin-esque melody, but that's not what today's kids are looking for.
No,
So I never got published.
Right.
In the
You need
music
a
world.
hook.
In the music world.
you gotta have a hook.
The only songs that I've ever been able to make money out of
Mm-hmm.
were the songs that I was able to make when I hooked up with Lawson Harris. Lawson Harris is another good friend of mine
Mm-hmm.
who lives in New York now, has a very nice, he's working at the Carlisle Hotel in New York
Mm-hmm.
and making a good living there. And every time I go to New York, not recently, but when I've gone to New York, I visit him, and it was a wonderful thing to sit in his room, the Bemmerman's Bar, Bemmerman, which was named after the guy who wrote the cartoon about, what was her name, Elsie, or, remember that kid? I can't remember, there was a kid. He used to tell stories about this kid by the name of Elsie.
Okay.
Used to hang around the hotel, the Plaza Hotel in New York. Okay, forgive me, my memory is, not as good as it used to be. But they named a room at the Hotel Carlisle after
Mhm.
him, Bemmelman's Bar. And that's where Lawson Harris has been performing for the last 10, 15 years.
Right.
And every time I go there,
Mm-hmm.
I'm celebrated.
Right.
He introduces me to the audience, says
Uh-huh.
wonderful things about me.
Yep.
And people come to me afterwards and say, you know that song, because he mentioned the fact that I wrote the lyrics to a song called Twilight.
Right. He's very good about that. Yeah.
He's very good about that. He gave me a lot of credit. He said, and Leonard Greenberg is in the audience now, and Leonard's the man who wrote the lyrics to that wonderful song, Twilight, that appears on my latest CD. My latest CD is called Timeless, and Leonard's on it, and there's a nice appreciation to him, and the cover and so on. which is
Right.
nice.
Then he calls you his partner in crime.
Well, I didn't say crime, but
Yeah, that's what he calls you.
did he say
Partner in crime. Oh yeah.
Anyway, and people will come over to me and say that the lyrics to that song are absolutely marvelous.
Right.
And I made a couple $100 out of it. That's about it.
Right.
But that's the only song that I really ever made money out of.
Mm-hmm.
And yet, when I try to peddle my songs back in the 70s, I was told what I said before.
Right. It's not commercial.
It's not commercial.
Right. Right.
And I also had a publisher who said to me, not a publisher, an agent say to me, it was a publisher, I could get your song recorded, but that would cost me a couple of $100,000 bucks. And then once I get your song recorded, it's going to cost me a couple of $100,000 more.
To promote it.
And this is back in the 70s.
Right.
If that's what it cost back in the 70s, it now costs well into the millions
Right.
to do that.
Well, now you promote your music by performing.
by performing.
Right.
And he said, after I make a record of your song,
Mm-hmm.
which will cost me a couple $100,000, it's going to cost me a couple $100,000 more for payola.
Mm-hmm.
And I said, payola? He says, yeah, you got to pay the DJs
Everybody, right.
to play it.
Right.
Because your song is not going to make money for me, the publisher,
Mm-hmm. Unless people hear it.
Unless people hear
Because
it.
It's over the airways.
and they're not going to hear it unless the DJs are paid
Right.
to play
Any
it.
little incentive to play your music. Right.
So that's the way the music world worked then. And
That is the main difference.
because that's the way it was,
Mhm.
I've had difficulty in getting my songs published.
Right. You're right, Pop. That's the main difference between music when you were growing up and now. Whereas now, what's commercial is kind of bland and it's more quantity,
Back
not
in
quality.
the old days, a publisher would, or a record company would listen to Gershwin or Berlin or any of the others, recognize the beauty of the music, and say, I want to publish it. And they
Right.
did.
What I'm saying, Dad, is that overall, what was commercial when you were growing up was quality music.
Was
That's the
quality music,
difference,
that's
because
right.
that was considered popular song. You know, jazz and the tail end of ragtime, those kinds of things.
See, I like the rep.
That was all considered popular song,
Yeah.
popular music. Now pop music is not that good.
I've auditioned for a panel of visiting people from the music industry, came in from Nashville. And they went to some group that I was a member of a number of years ago. And we were invited to play our songs
Hmm.
for them, for these visiting women from Nashville.
I'm sorry, play a recording or play?
Play
the instrument.
A recording.
Oh.
I had a recording.
Okay.
And I remember playing or giving them, or playing the CD that had a couple of very nice songs on it.
What do you remember what the songs were?
No, I don't remember. They're songs that I wrote back in the 70s and 80s.
What, Free Lunch? Was that
It could be
Rest
Free
in
Lunch,
VA
yeah.
time?
Well, yeah, but I didn't play Rest in VA for them.
No.
But I did play
Great song.
Free Lunch
Hmm.
and a bunch of other songs.
No More Mr. Nice Guy, was that?
Oh, more Mr. Nice Guy.
Right, right.
Nice guys finished last.
Uh-huh.
I was once a nice guy. Now those days are past.
Right. What were some of the other songs? You had that band Inner Light record them for you.
Oh, that's
Did a couple
right. Inner Light recorded a couple of songs.
Mm-hmm.
Free
So
Lunch.
Long Sweetheart, was that?
No, not
No.
Little Sweetheart, but they played, oh God, I don't remember
No.
what they were, but Inner Light performed some of my songs.
Right. Well, not performed, but they recorded it for you.
Recorded it for me.
Right.
And one of them was Free Lunch.
Right. Mm-hmm.
And I still have those recordings, they're upstairs, but
Oh, yeah.
they're unplayed because I've gone on to do other things in my life, like I'm teaching now.
Right. Something
And I'm
that-
enjoying that very much.
Right.